you so much, Kristen. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for being here, especially right up until the very end. As Kristen perfectly stated, my thesis deals with the material qualities of contemporary abandoned spaces. That is, spaces and their objects abandoned from the 20th century onwards. Contemporary abandoned spaces and the objects that are found inside caught my eye because of their ability to capture the imaginations of so many. In the past 15 years, a veritable surge of articles appeared online showcasing abandoned spaces and their objects. Why do so many people find the materiality of ruination so intensely engaging? This question led me on a journey exploring the specific materiality of abandonment, the affective responses it demands, and such topics as the material culture of souvenirs, memory, emotion, absence, marginalized history, and alternative museums. To do this, I coupled site visits with interviews, visiting 8 sites, including the creamery and cottages here at Winterthur, the abandoned sections of Ellis Island, a silent movie theater, a community center, Eastern State Penitentiary and its abandoned collections, and an abandoned bank. Interviewees included individuals who had extensive experience in contemporary ruins. While the sheer popularity of these sites points toward why they might be important for material culture scholars and others to examine, I hope to have proven their value as a research topic by exploring how they connect to and further so many material culture topics and theories. Ruin lust is not new, but contemporary abandoned spaces are. Unlike their ancient counterparts, contemporary ruins are very much still in the ruining process. Often abandoned with an immediacy such as shutting a door for the last time, abandoned spaces are filled with objects that create the effect of a time capsule. In these sites, time at once stays still and passes as materials build up or erode, such as layers of dust or the decomposition of textiles to create materializations of time, a process that could only happen with the stillness of the space. These materializations of time transform the site into a melancholic and nostalgic one, characteristics that attune the visitor to other material qualities of the ruin, memory and emotion. Memory is the melancholic nature of ruins highlights the material forms of memory in ruins. Where persons are in constant contact with objects throughout everyday life, these objects take the body in. That is, clothes remember the shape and scent of the wearer, floors remember steps, and buttons and switches remember hands and fingers. A person's physicality remains in objects long after the body is gone. In ruins, these material memories, or witness marks, take the form of momentary material memories and routinized material memories. Momentary memories remember one singular ephemeral engagement with an object, such as a footprint or a fingerprint. Ruins foster momentary memories in particular because of the amount of dust and debris that covers every surface, itself an indication of time passing, to memorialize an instantaneous moment. Routinized memories can be understood as a buildup of these momentary memories, and thus show how an object changes over time to memorialize a long-term relationship between person and object. These material memories remember a past person's physicality, pointing towards the missing body that created them. But in these spaces, there are also missing objects. Material memories equally remember engagements between objects, such as water stains from a once functional fountain or a missing piece of hardware from a door. Thus, the ruin emphasizes what is called the material culture of absence. That is, when the objects that are missing are actually more potent than the objects that are truly present. Here, missing objects can be treated as objects just as much as their remaining counterparts. This is the case for both absent persons and absent objects. Contemporary ruins also materialize emotion just as much as memory. As contemporary material culture scholars have debated, the materiality of emotion is notoriously tricky. There's no clear formula to find out someone's past emotions, though through their objects, despite the fact that emotions are so key to intimately understanding someone. The worry here is that present-day researchers will project their own understanding of emotions onto the past objects and persons. This projection, however, provides a useful lens to find out how people today understand the materiality of emotion. For instance, my interviewees and I found private objects to be indicative of an owner's or user's emotions, such as this bottle of Tiger Balm lotion I found in Eastern State Penitentiary's abandoned collection, in which a former inmate kept personal belongings such as notes and a watch face. The closed nature of the object renders it private, bolstering the Western view that emotions are internal, but going against the view that internal, private emotions are immaterial. Interviewees also indicated that private spaces such as bedrooms also seem to be a window into past persons' emotional lives. A second type of emotional object in space is social in nature. Objects that materialized friendships and relationships, such as this humorous graffiti I found in Winter's Creamery, reveal how emotions produce and are produced by social relationships. More broadly, interviewees and I found objects that conveyed emotions when they indicated how a person engaged in meaning-making strategies. That is, how individuals made their lives meaningful within life's boundaries and possibilities. One example of this is the ball made of rags that I found in Eastern State's abandoned collection, or a past inmate's annotated Bible. Finally, ruins facilitate emotional relationships to ruined objects, and the past persons visitors imagine to be associated with them by allowing visitors to engage with the objects via the most emotional sense, touch, and also by allowing visitors to engage with these imagined past persons alone. The connection between visitor and imagined past person is thus intimate and direct. This relationship can also be continued through another aspect of the visitor's material engagement with the ruins, the collection of souvenirs. Where the ruin engages senses in ways different to our expected daily routines, ruins heighten senses in similar ways to travel. Thus, the ruin is a temporary escape into the extraordinary, and this trip often results in visitors taking objects and displaying them in their homes, thus continuing the relationship they foster with past persons they imagine ad infinitum. But this relationship is just that, between the visitor and the imagined past person. The visitor really has no idea who the individuals were who once inhabited these spaces and used these objects, but they still feel close to them. Thus, the imagination jumps in and fills the gaps, populating the material culture of absent to render the absent real. In fact, these imaginings can be so powerful that interviewees and other sources report how their experiences blur the line between imagination and reality. The potency of these imaginings results in respondents explaining their experiences with a type of ghostly language, in which these individuals describe hearing past persons' voices, smelling past smells, and feeling the gaze of past persons. As photographer Shirley C. Burden said of her experiences in the then completely abandoned Ellis Island, "There was, when I began photographing Ellis Island, a presence. Every step I made, I looked over my shoulder to see who was watching me. I never saw anybody, but I'm sure people were there." Rather than dismissing these reports as superstitious, I believe they attest to the ways in which individuals understand how past persons are embedded in and stay on in objects, a main tenet of material culture studies. Finally, these spaces can be conceived of as alternative museums. In each of my interviews, respondents compared abandoned spaces to museums, but interviewees position abandoned spaces as outside the traditional museum model and heritage sphere. This is in part because ruins and their objects are themselves critical of this model and sphere. They fall outside of societal remembrance practices. Instead, they exist as involuntary memories. No one chooses to remember them, but they still exist. These spaces and objects thus have a unique ability to question what should be remembered or not, often embodying negative histories and the stories of persons who have been historically stigmatized and marginalized, such as criminals or the physically and mentally ill. The turn to contemporary ruins therefore dovetails with the turn to post-colonial studies and alternative histories that aim to question canonical histories. Their critical voice is what makes them appealing. But what happens when these spaces and their objects are brought into the museum and heritage sphere? In recent years, there has also been a turn to ruins and the materiality of abandonment in the museum. Rather than silencing the ruins' critical voice, museums capitalize on it and amplify it. Institutions such as Eastern State Penitentiary and the Eastside Tenement Museum in New York use the site's critical frame to explore the experiences of historical and contemporary marginalized persons. But this turn does not come without anxieties. The imaginings that ruins foster, allowing visitors to feel close to persons they do not know, stems from a bottom-up model in which the visitor is in complete control of the ways in which objects are understood. An object's meaning is thus highly dynamic, but this becomes problematic in the face of misrepresenting past persons, especially when those persons were traditionally marginalized and voiceless. For me, the study of abandoned spaces indicates the potential for the field of contemporary material culture and how it may push material culture studies and theories forward. I want to especially thank the program then for allowing me to pursue the program's first contemporary topic, and I hope there will be more. Because the past is nothing without the present, and the present is nothing without the past. Thank you so much for an absolutely life-changing 2 years, everyone. Thank you.